Last night after trick-or-treating, I had the most terrifying experience of my life. I'm a 42-year-old man for your reference. It was about 10:30 and I was just hanging out watching TV. All of a sudden, boom, 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 boom. There was someone smashing my front door with their fist. I was instantly freaked out. I slunk down to see out the front windows, hiding behind my plants to try and not be seen. I live in a split-level house, so my living room is about 10 inches off the ground. I can't see anybody, but there is a black mid-size SUV in my driveway with its lights and hazards on. Being Halloween and having an active imagination, my mind automatically goes to horror movie scenes. This is when I realize my back patio door is difficult to lock most of times and is unlocked. I creep into the basement to get a piece of wood to jam it shut. As I'm coming out of the basement, there's two loud bangs on the basement window along the side of my house. Half the basement is above the ground. Remember, it's a split level. I quick run up and throw the wood to jam the sliding door shut, close the blinds, and creep back up the stairs, turning all the lights off on the way to the living area. As I'm tiptoeing back up and into the living room, I can see the car pulling out of my driveway really slow. About an hour later, all seems good and I'm kind of calming down. I'm sitting on my couch with the lights off, watching TV. I see car lights come across my ceiling from pulling up my inclined driveway. I look out, and it's the black SUV again. Now I'm really scared. I grab my phone and call 911, thinking I'm about to be in next year's urban legend. I'm on my knees, peering through the plants in my window, just watching. Nobody gets out. I can't see the make or license number, it's so dark. Just a black SUV with lights and hazards on. The SUV was pulled so far forward their bumper was practically touching my front step slab, like 4 from my front door. Nobody gets out. I can't see in the car. They just sit there. I'm on the phone with 911 telling them what happened earlier and what is happening now. The black SUV slowly reverses out of my driveway and leaves. About 20 minutes later, I see the deputy rolling through our subdivision. The subdivision is one way in, one way out. Very small and a little rural. As he's coming back down the road, I see my landlord going out, who lives next door, so I open my door to go out there and tell them both what's going on. When I open the door, there is a note taped to it that says, "Derek, we're going to kill you." I'm not Derek. I don't know a Derek. And I don't know why whoever was banging thinks Derek lives here. I double time to the deputy and landlord and tell them about the note and the other happenings. He calls backup. They take the note, ask both me and my landlord a bunch of questions about who this Derek guy is. One of the deputies pulls me aside and starts asking, "Do I owe anybody money? Do I know anybody that would want to hurt me? Am I involved in any sort of lover's triangle?" No, no, and no. He says there will be a deputy in the area, and if anything happens, call 911. Landlord was just going out for mail and swears he has never rented to a Derek. Heard anything, saw anything, nothing. Here's the really fucked up part. This morning I was in my office, which is where that patio door I jammed shut is. It was freezing cold in there. I opened the blinds and the sliding door was about 4 open, meaning someone had tried to open the door after I had put the piece of wood in there to jam it shut. Told the landlord, he already has a better lock on mine and his patio door and built us both a better door jamb. I know this is long. Thanks for reading. I swear all of this is true and happened last night.
I'm from Connecticut. I was in a long-distance relationship with a girl from Georgia and would often make road trips down to visit her. I don't really mind. I love road trips. I've driven across the United States and back, all on my own. There's just something about traveling the highways of the U.S. by yourself that's just so freeing. To save money, I would sleep in my car. It's not so bad. It's basically camping in a metal tent. Makes you feel like you're really roughing it. I just recline the seat back, keep the key in the ignition just in case, and doze off. No, I don't put anything up to block the windows for privacy. Maybe I should have. The trip down south is a comfortable 2-day drive. My stop would usually be somewhere along the Virginia-North Carolina border. So for my previous trip, that's exactly where I stopped that night. Rest stops were often less trafficked and thus quieter than truck stops. Normally, I would have stopped at a Love's, but I was so tired that I settled for the first rest stop I saw. It was oddly vacant that night, with only a couple lone cars sitting forlorn under the amber street lamps, most likely travelers with the same idea as myself. I pulled into a parking spot away from the others, under the shadow of a tree and far from the street lamps. I figured I would have more privacy there, as opposed to being bathed in light. So I did my usual thing, locked my doors, opened the window just a hair view for ventilation, kept my key in, reclined the seat, and went to sleep. I was never interrupted on any of these car camping nights, so I never suspected anything on this one. Then a sharp tap woke me up. At first I thought I had heard it in my dream. I opened my eyes, a bit confused. Since I was leaned back, I was facing the ceiling and couldn't see anything. I hear another tap, like a tiny object hitting a hard surface. It came in an irregular rhythm. Was it raining? Was water dripping onto my windshield? I'm under a tree. Maybe something fell from the branches. Maybe a squirrel or a bird was dropped something. What if a squirrel was climbing around my car? Or what if it wasn't an animal? The thought occurred to me that it might very well be a person poking around outside. What did they want? Were the doors locked? Yes, the keys were in the ignition. I can leave in an instant. Still, I lay there, completely still, pretending to be asleep, pretending I hadn't heard anything, hoping whoever it was, they would leave me alone. It was better to not find out. I was too afraid to find out. It was better to stay here, in blissful ignorance. Still the tapping continued. I had to do something. There was no way I was just going to stay there. I had to look. My heart was pounding. In that moment, it was deafeningly loud. Whoever was out there could probably hear it. I decided. I was going to look. I was going to raise my head up and see what was making the noise. So that's what I did. What met my eyes sent a jolt through entire body. Every muscle fiber locked up in pure shock at what I saw. The faint glow of the street lamps cast just enough light for me to make out what I looking at. There in the windshield, staring directly at me, was a face. Someone, I presume to be a woman, was lying on my hood, her face pressed right up against my windshield. Her face was completely still, locked in a permanent grin. I froze in overwhelming terror. The eyes I stared into appeared to have rolled back, showing only the whites. The nose was turned up, pressed painfully into the glass. The lips stretched wide, revealing horrid rotten teeth. Even in the darkness, I could tell her skin was sickly pale, contrasting her long, filthy black hair. Whoever this was, she was clearly not in her right mind. I don't know how long I sat there, too afraid to move. Finally, I got a grip on myself and shot my hand to the ignition. It turned over, making, in that instant, the most beautiful sound I ever heard. For a split second, I was afraid I might be caught in a horror movie scenario, the one where the car won't crank as the killer approaches. I reversed as fast as I could, trying not to give this creeper time to try anything. In my panic, I remember activating the windshield wipers in a futile attempt to get her off. I thought, was I about to drive out of here with some wacko holding onto my hood? Thankfully, I didn't have to worry about that, because as soon as I stopped, the woman leapt off, landing on all fours. Seeing my opportunity, I shifted into drive and gunned it, right as I saw her reaching for the driver's side door. With my foot on the gas, I sped out of the parking lot. Behind me, I heard her let out a piercing shriek, like that of an animal. I looked in my rearview mirror, and for a split second, I thought I saw her chasing me, running on all fours, her black hair swinging wildly around her. I couldn't get a good look as I rounded a curve in the road leading out of the rest stop and merged with the highway. There, I picked up speed and drove through the night. I did not dare stop again until I saw the morning light.
They say it takes 2 days before your cats will eat your body if you die. Well, I can tell you that it's longer than that, but not by much. I have 5 cats. Yes, 5. My fiancé and I started with 1, then graduated to 3 after a friend started having allergic reactions and had to give his 2 up. Then the same happened a few years later with one of her friends. Now we're at 5. It's too many cats in my opinion, but what can I do at this point? They're here to stay, and I love them, unconditionally. A while ago now, my fiancé left for a trip to Thailand. She's into Muay Thai, and so is her brother, so he invited her to go with him on a training trip his gym was taking. This left me home alone for a while, which, as an introvert as well as a professional writer who is currently in the midst of his 2nd novel, was not unwelcome. I was looking forward to some valuable alone time and a distraction-free environment in which to make some progress on my writing. 3 days into her trip, I had been doing just that. Around 4 p.m, I finished my 3rd chapter in as many days. I was thrilled, but needed a change of pace as my mind was beginning to give off sparks. One of the lights in the high ceiling of our living room had gone out, so I figured I'd take this time to replace it. I went into the garage and got the ladder, then set it up under the light. I stood on the 2nd from top step, looking up. Even though I'm tall, I could still barely reach the light. I went up to the next rung, knowing full well it wasn't safe. I could reach it now, but it was still at an awkward distance. I thought about it for a second, then decided to just go for it. I didn't want to have to find another ladder or call an electrician. Plus, I'm pretty sure-footed, so I stepped up onto the top of the ladder. I could comfortably reach the light now. The bulb was a pretty standard screw-in type that could easily be changed out, except that there was a thin metal rim that went about halfway around the circumference of the fixture and blocked the bulb from coming out. Try as I might, I could not figure out how to get the bulb around it or get it off. I finally resorted to brute force and gave it a good yank. Nothing happened. I yanked it harder. Still nothing. I gave it one more firm pull and it came off. Unfortunately, so did my feet from the ladder. I came to lying on my back, staring up at the broken fixture. I couldn't move. I could tell I was breathing, and a dull aching in my back that seemed many miles away told me that I still had some life in my nerves. But otherwise, nothing. Panic didn't last long, as there wasn't anything I could do. Since I was conscious and could feel a bit, I figured it would pass. I resolved myself to wait it out and began focusing on my breathing, not only as a meditative practice, but to help regain control of myself too. As time passed, I could sense faint nudges around my feet, hands, and head. Now and then a shock of fur would pass before my eyes. Once my breathing became more difficult and far off somewhere, I could feel 4 little paws on my chest. They were hungry, but there was nothing I could do. They'd have to wait it out just like me. Darkness fell, and then the light returned. My situation hadn't improved. More and more I felt the little nudges or the poke of a paw on my face. I kept focusing on my breathing. If I was making progress with it, I couldn't tell, but for the time being, it was keeping me sane. Again night fell, and again dawn broke with no improvement. The nudges and pokes were getting more frequent and far more desperate. I could feel a gnawing sensation in my own stomach, and my lips were beginning to feel dry and cracked. Sometime during the 3rd night is when I felt the teeth. Again, that far-away sensation, almost as if it were happening to someone else. Even so, the feeling was unmistakable, like 2 steel rods sinking into the flesh of my calf, then a tug, then a rip. I tried with all my might to make myself scream. Nothing. I felt the teeth again. Another pull, another rip, a wet chewing sound. I waited for my lungs to fill with air and then focused all my energy into forcing it out. A low, strained groan escaped my lips, but it was enough. The teeth stopped and I felt the faint vibrations of the little footsteps going away. I woke up later in the night to what felt like a small piece of sandpaper rubbing against my leg. Someone was licking up the blood around the wound. Again I groaned. The licking stopped for a moment and then began once more. I tried to kick out with my leg and managed a small twitch. I heard paws run off again. It was starting to feel like a small fire was smouldering in my leg, just embers for now, but it wasn't good. How long had they been at it while I was asleep? How much longer could I hold them off? What was left of my leg, how much longer could I last like this? This same cycle continued for days. First, the feel of teeth in the flesh of my leg, arm, or sometimes my face. Next, a twitch or a groan to shake them off. Sometimes more than one set of teeth at a time. Sometimes they wouldn't leave. I could feel the wetness of blood on parts of me. I could feel the small embers of pain and infection all over. My stomach felt like it was filled with nails. My mouth was like hot sand. I was growing weak. With what was now left of my sanity, I tried to count the days I'd been lying there. She must have been close to returning home. It must have been long enough that someone knows something's wrong. I had to be close to the end. It was hard to tell, though, with the sensation of 5 little sets of teeth all tearing at 5 different parts of me. Concentration was in short supply. I wanted to shake them off, but I was so tired. All I wanted was to rest. I forgot about my breathing. My eyes began to go black. My thoughts began to fade. Far off somewhere, I heard the rumble of a car engine. I heard the jagged metal grinding of a key in a lock. I heard hinges creak. I heard footsteps. I heard screaming.